I'm sorry it was a bit of a short turnaround time. I hope you are suitably refreshed and ready for this session. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this session on advanced fuels, reprocessing, waste management and decommissioning aspects of SMRs. My name is Anna Clark. I'm from the IAEA's Department of Nuclear Safety and Security, where I head the Waste and Environmental Safety section. This is the first of two sessions discussing some really important enablers for safe and sustainable deployment of SMRs. Firstly, development and production of nuclear fuel. Successful deployment of SMRs requires that we have a mature fuel production technology producing safe, transportable fuel on a commercial scale. The second enabler, one very close to my heart, is that we can manage the spent fuel and radioactive waste. Essential to clean and sustainable energy is that SMRs are safe throughout their lifetimes. That means ensuring that SMRs can be decommissioned and ensuring that spent fuel and radioactive waste can be stored and disposed. So we have an opportunity now at the design stage to think about minimizing waste and minimizing the need for long-term institutional controls at the end of operations. So let's hear what our speakers have to say on this topic. And to open our session, I'd like to invite our other co-chair to introduce herself, Gloria.
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon and welcome to this session. I'm Gloria Kwong, Head of Decommissioning and Environmental Remediation in the Department of Nuclear Energy. It is also my pleasure to welcome you and also to co-chair this session. We have an exciting lineup of 5 presentations today, each lasting about 15 minutes. To make sure that we stay on schedule, let me kindly ask that we hold all questions until the end of all the presentations. Then we'll have a Q&A period, a short one, and when we get there, Anna will quickly remind us how the Q&A period will run. Now I have the honor to introduce the speakers and the talks to you. However, again, in the interest of saving time, I will keep the introductions very short, and I welcome you and I encourage you to visit the conference app to look for the more detailed biographies. With that, let's start. Our first speaker today is Ms. Amparo Espotaro, and she is the technical leader of spent fuel management in the section of nuclear fuel cycle and materials. Her talk today will focus on the IAEA CRP coordinated research projects addressing challenges, gaps, and opportunities in managing SMR spent fuel. Amparo, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Gloria and Anna. So thank you for the opportunity to be here and to share with you some of the activities the IAEA is conducting on the back end of the fuel cycle for SMRs. So the content of my presentation will go through when we receive the recommendations from member states to start working on addressing these challenges. I will go through some of related activities and I will focus on the CRP, on challenges, gaps, and opportunities for managing spent fuel from SMRs. Some of the slides I will pass by very quickly because we have only 15 minutes and we don't want to jeopardize the whole section. So in 2019, the technical working group of the IAEA on nuclear fuel cycle options and spent fuel management, which advises the head of the nuclear energy department on topics on spent fuel management and advanced fuel cycles, in the annual meeting in 2019 recommended the IAEA to start activities on addressing the challenges for the back end, because they realized that there were a lot of discussions at the time on fuel design, on reactor designs, and all of the topics, but fuel and fuel cycle were not especially considered. So in 2020 edition of ARI's booklet, it was included some information from developers on those topics, and it was expanded in the edition on 2022. So we all know that we shouldn't forget that for each reactor there is an associated fuel cycle, that for the nuclear energy to be sustainable has to be implemented and developed, economically viable and competitive. And how this can be achieved? It can be achieved optimizing the use of fissile material in the core, increasing the burn-up and the enrichment, and also recycling the valuable materials. And this results in different fuel cycle options. The two first are already industrially implemented. Open cycle considers spent fuel as a waste, and the mono-recycling of uranium and plutonium, and the advanced fuel cycles that will be implemented in the future, going through the multi-recycling in light water reactors. And now with the incorporation in the next future of different SMRs technologies, it will bring also a new spectrum of nuclear fuel cycle options to be considered. So with this in mind, we organized in September 2022 a technical meeting on back end of the fuel cycle considerations for SMRs. It was very well attended. We had more than 100 people here attending the technical meeting. There were like 16 online, and we have about 50 here in Vienna, and 3 international organizations. We break out in different sessions because we discussed together. We didn't want to have any technology aside, and during the breakout sessions we were considering discussion on light water reactors, HTGR, prismatic and bevel beds, and advanced modular reactors, considering fast reactors and molten salt. So all discussions, the conclusions, and the material gathered during the technical working group, technical meeting, was gathered in this IAA Tech Talk that was published in December 2023 with the reference 2014. We also conducted last year, the IAA conducted the international workshop on the chemistry of fuel cycles for molten salt reactor technologies in cooperation with the OECD NEA. We had 4 developers here and 40 experts from researchers and also from industrial partners that were working for 30 years or more on molten salt and pyrochemistry. And so it was a huge discussion, it was a very interesting discussion, and we have heard during these days, molten salts is a technology very applicable for SMRs. And a part of the discussions that we are going to publish in the proceedings that are going to be issued soon, we identified 2 follow-up activities to be conducted next year. The necessity to have a taxonomy of what are the different fuel cycle options, and we will try to build on the publication of the IAA on the taxonomy of molten salt reactors published last year, and also about the terminology, but because what is today in the safety glossary is related to light water reactors, that some terms don't apply to the molten salt. So, and we will do it in collaboration with the OECD. And we also conducted in June this year the International Conference on Spent Fuel Management that includes also discussions on SMRs. We did it in collaboration with Safety Department and also with international organizations like the OECD, NEA, World Nuclear Association, European Commission, and the World Nuclear Transport Institute. We have about 300 people attending the conference, and we had 4 panels, a part of the oral presentations, dedicated to the national programs, the stakeholders' involvement to the different stages of the back end. And we had a panel dedicated to innovation and integration, and was mostly dedicated to talk about the back end of SMRs fuel cycles. You see, we had the industry, the Joint Research Center, and we have some developers and also researchers from 2 universities. And we didn't have parallel sessions in that conference, but we have a track dedicated to the impacts of advanced nuclear energy systems in the back end of the fuel cycle, mostly discussing SMRs, and we have 2 dedicated sessions that I have highlighted in the slide. So all these activities gave us the identification of some challenges for the management of SMR spent fuels. For those based on the current fleet, the technologies will be, let's say, easily adaptable. But for those going for enrichment beyond 5% up to 20%, there are some challenges, like, for example, it was identified the codes for calculation of criticality, heat decay, because the codes today are based on the current fleet. So benchmarking is needed to validate the codes, and international collaboration is paramount. And also, the use of HALEU will bring more plutonium in spent fuel that will make these fuels more attractive for recycling, and then the capacity for reprocessing and recycling will need to be expanded if those fuels will be deployed in a larger scale. For HTER, pebble beds or prismatic, there are limited experience, and experience are in Germany, in UK, and in Japan. Japan is also foreseen to look for processes to recycling trisoparticles. So if those SMRs are going to be deployed in countries with less mature programs or even not nuclear, it needs to have the supply chain developed to provide services to manage those spent fuels. And for fast reactors, it will be more or less the same challenges as we are seeing in the large fast reactors. So these new fuel characteristics with metallic fuels, nitride, more content of plutonium in the oxide fuels, and the chemistry of those fuels. And these are foreseen to be multi-recycled. So also the multi-recycling need to be pushed ahead, either through light water reactors to go beyond for fast reactors. And in the case of molten salts, we discussed these days the chemistry is very challenging, it's very aggressive chemistry, how to keep the loop with all these different types of fuels, and how to keep the recycling of the fissile material in the core, to extract the fission products, and how to deal after with a spent salt when it's spent, how to manage it as a waste with all fission products inside. So this is a brief overview of the back end. So for transportation, it's package content specific, so we'll need to develop new solutions. And we saw yesterday some industries developing solutions for transporting also microreactors. And what are the safety standards today? All the regulations are based on SSR 6. So new requirements will need to be identified and developed. For storage systems is for the current fleet, so new developments, designs, and licensing needs to be under operation at the time of the reactors will be deployed. In the case of recycling, so currently there is a limited reprocessing capacity after the closure of Thorpe a facility in UK in 2018. Now there are the only countries that can provide service to the third parties are France and Russia. Smaller capacities are available in India and China, and Japan will commission Rokasho in the 2020s is envisaged. So, and also the advanced modular reactors are foreseen to be deployed in 2035, 2040. And at the time, this is the due of renew of LAC and MELOX if they are extended to 2040. So even at that time, so we need to anticipate what will be the reprocessing and recycling capacities at that time for AMRs if they are implemented as we are envisaging today. And also it will be paramount and key to accelerate and as an enabler the implementation of multi-recycling in light water reactors as a transition to fast reactors. And for disposal, so what is currently under design and development is based in the current fleet. Any new form of waste, any new fuel will require a major investigation to design the disposal concepts. So, and the integration of all these stages is key, but also how to integrate all these new fuel cycles in the current implemented technology. So, with all this in mind, we received a recommendation from member states to the IAEA to launch a coordinated research project on challenges, gaps, and opportunities for managing spent fuel from SMRs. with the main objective to identify viable nuclear fuel cycle options for the different technologies, to identify what can be used today, what can be derived from the current technologies, and what will be need a fully from scratch development. And also to prepare a list of generic key parameters for countries to perform their analysis with their context and their boundary conditions. So what we expect as our main outputs is to develop a specific roadmaps for the different fuel cycle options. We have already identified the potential scenarios, let's call them like this, and then to identify what will be the nuclear fuel cycle facilities needed, the technology readiness level of the different technological solutions, which nuclear materials will be involved, and what will be the waste forms that will be generated, which infrastructures will be needed. We are not going to address everything, but identify this will be needed as an input to other activities, like, for example, human resources development, financing, which R&D will be needed, and which demonstrators, and which can be the enablers and the synergies between the different technologies for the fuel cycle. So where we are today, we have signed 14 research contracts with countries eligible for contracts and 17 research agreements. And we have industry, operators, researchers, regulators in those proposals. So the first research coordination meeting is going to happen next month, 11-15 of November, here in Vienna. And to end my presentation, I would like to share with you also some activities we foresee that are scheduled for next year related to SMRs as well. So we are conducting a technical meeting to gather operational experiences and lessons learned on managing non-standard fuels and exotic, we call it like this, legacy power and research reactors fuels, because there is a lot of materials, there are materials out there to be managed, and this experience can be very valuable to help to support the management of new fuels coming from SMRs. It will happen in February here in Vienna. We will organize a topical meeting on how to manage spent fuel from high temperature gas reactors, pebble beds, and prismatic fuels, and a workshop on challenges for managing evolutionary advanced technology fuels that will serve as a base for those light water reactors envisaging to use helium, basically. And with this, I think I'm done. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thanks, Amparo. Our second speaker is Ms. Christina Gillen. Ms. Gillen is the Principal Consultant at Vices Group in Sweden. Today she will talk to us about the designing principle for SMRs in a circular economy. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon. So, as our understanding of the need for sustainability continues to increase, there seems to be two parallel megatrends that have emerged relatively recently in the past years or decade or so. New reactors we are planning to build, particularly SMRs, the whole purpose of this conference. And secondly, the concept of a circular economy as an enabler of a sustainable future. And I'll get back to circular economy, but one of the key features is that it is enabled through design. This means, when taken together, that now is the window of opportunity to ensure that future reactors are designed for a circular economy. I'll read that again. Designed for a circular economy. Not only designed for decommissioning, not only designed to minimize CO2 emissions, but designed for a circular economy, which is much broader, and again, a sustainability enabler. So what is then a circular economy? Well, it focuses on the resources, the materials, and it promotes using, in short, as little as possible for as long as possible. There are many formal definitions. They haven't really landed yet, in my opinion, but these are kind of the common denominators. A circular economy is not the same as the waste hierarchy. There are common elements, certainly, But again, circular economy is much broader, much bigger. Another key feature is that it cannot be achieved by one organization alone. So a lot of research right now is going into circular supply chain management. Another highlight of a circular economy is that it's very much an emerging field. So no one really has all the answers at this point. It's ongoing work. But the work to date has mainly been focused on products that are transportable. So think your washing machine or your car or your pens or materials like plastic. Or it's been focused on the conventional built environment, your homes, your offices, and so on. But what does it mean for a complex industry like the nuclear sector, where each site consists of thousands of different products, components, and systems, made up of almost endless amounts of types of materials? Well, to start, I've been arguing for a few years now that we need to look at it really from a site level and approach a nuclear site from a circular perspective. I know we're hardwired almost in our industry to think linearly of the licensing steps, but from a site perspective, I don't think that makes sense, because once you've sited one facility and you constructed it and you started using it, that site will kind of forever be earmarked as an existing or a former nuclear site. So getting in the mindset of thinking, you have the use phase and then you transform it to something else. That is, even the second time around, even if it's going back and becoming a nature preserve or just rewilding, you can, from a site perspective, you really will have different cycles of useful uses and uses of when you're transforming the site into something else that hopefully is useful. And then you can start drilling down from there. What does it mean to design a site, a facility for a circular economy? Well, you need to have design principles, right? Because again, circular economy is enabled through design. Now, how do you do that on something that's, again, so complex and has so many parts? Well, I thought it makes sense to start by separating to 3 different levels. The highest level is the site, the facility itself, including structures that are not easily transportable. So think of them more as your fixed assets. And that the next level, it's systems and components, including structures that are easily transportable. So these are the things that enable moving back and forth. And for example, repurposing, remanufacturing, which is a key term in a circular economy. So you have that flexibility. And the last level, materials. Everything at the end of the day consists of different materials. Another dimension, if you will, in deriving design principles, what seemed logical is, again, the supply chain perspective. We hear a lot about supply chains, the importance of it, and again, in circular economy, that's where a lot of the research is going in, circular supply chain management. And so using what has become very established, they call them loops, narrowing loops, slowing loops, intensifying loops, and closing loops. I'll get back to all of these to kind of overlayer those different levels and see what comes out. And lastly, to consider the life cycle phases of a nuclear facility from a use perspective. What can be a useful use and what can be used for next phase and so on. So what comes out if you put these layers together into something of a matrix, I guess? Well, looking at the narrowing loop in circular supply chain management, what does that mean? Well, it means, in my words, reduce the input of resources, all types of resources, to enable the usage. Really, in practice, you need less to make something ready for use. So this looks at the process before you get to your use phase. What happens then if you look with interdisciplinary eyes on these is at this, I'm not going to go through all of them, time doesn't allow that, but just to highlight a couple of examples is at the site and facility level, it actually means, try to reduce the physical footprint. That's a very simple key thing that emerges when you look at it through these eyes, because why take up more space than needed, right? At the material level, try to minimize amount of material that you need during all phases, really. Less is more. Slowing loop in the terminology of circular supply chain management means looking at the use phase and extend it. Try to use something for as long as possible. Use it longer. Translating that into the 3 levels means, of course, and this is already done, right? Maximize design life of the facility. We see much longer assumptions in terms of design life, and that's good. But also facilitate life extension, right? I mean, we look at it's pretty intuitive, actually. Look at the experience from the existing fleet. But with a circular supply chain perspective, this comes out as something, think about it now. If you were to extend the life of any reactor, but SMRs now, because that's the focus here. And also consider one day it might be refurbished. You might not plan it now, but things change, and that could be something that comes out later. Or recommissioning, something that's been permanently closed and you're once again considering opening it. If that were to happen for the SMR designs that are now being worked on, what would that look like? Would anything change? Does a consideration trigger some design changes that would facilitate extending the life, refurbishing and recommissioning, et cetera? At the systems and components level, slowing loop would mean enable usage, think about, which systems might you need during decommissioning, like a crane, for example, or a ventilation system. We'll also design it for beyond the operational life, if you can, or at least make it possible to refurbish it so you don't need to replace the whole system, which would be much more costly and require many more resources. Intensifying loop in this terminology means that during the use phase, you use something more, for more, buy more, and with less disruptions, etc. So sharing economy, carpooling, those kinds of things is an example of intensifying loop outside of the nuclear industry. But what would it mean for us? Well, long list emerges. Again, think during the use phase, use it more, use it better. Some examples again, utilizing multiple outputs, not only power, but heat, radioisotope production, etc. Again, this is being used. It's being added sometimes along the way. So we're not talking revolutionary changes really in what comes out, but the point is think about it now when you're designing and enable it. Enable addition. Facilitate power operating. Again, looking at experience, and we even heard at the opening session on NuScale that have run into power operating even at this stage. So my point is a circular economy mindset would trigger the thinking and facilitate it, simplify it, put it in the design that one day you might want to operate the power. At the systems and components level, minimize the number of different systems and component types because that will simplify everything really, and minimize the need for maintenance of systems and components. Lastly, the closing loop, and this I would say is when we hear there is good work going on, and it's definitely growing. I know IEA is spearheading a lot of it, but when we talk about, I believe, when most people talk about a circular economy so far in the nuclear industry, we think about the closing loop. And the closing loops, in my words, is enable something to be used again. So whether it's recycling or repurposing, reusing, again, that's just one aspect of a circular economy. When you translate that into these different levels, again, pretty intuitive, but facilitate. Think before you build it. Design into your reactor design, facilitate reusing and repurposing, facilitate using things for something else once operation has ceased, minimize duration of decommission, and actually comes out of this because you want to go back to a new productive use and make good use of the material and not just have it sit at the site. At the systems and components level, consider opportunities for reuse and repurposing of the systems and components, so not the whole facility. And at the material level, circular economy works both ways, right? So it's not only what's on your site, how can that be used somewhere else, but how can I off-take what might be waste from someone else and use that material. It can be as simple as crushed concrete or rock or whatever, but getting into the mindset of how can I off-take what someone else's waste if we are to really become part of a circular economy and in turn a sustainable future. So to conclude, many of the practices that I mentioned here, as you will note, it's already being done, but they're not recognized as a circular economy. And I think that's a lost opportunity for the nuclear industry. They are being done for economic reasons, for safety, whatever, but it really is to extend the life of an existing facility. It is spot on circular economy. Why are we not talking about it? I don't know. I think we should. But in order to really then contribute to a sustainable future as we want and claim we do, we need to think beyond CO2 emissions and have design principles for circular economy, because there's so much more that can be done. The framework and the design principles that I've shared with you today is, of course, just the beginning. It's at the conceptual level and intended to really spark the discussion and put it out there that more needs to be done if we are to tap into the capacity of contributing to sustainable development. They're done so for early adopters, if you at least want to adopt the mindset of a circular economy into the designs. They are out there. It's just, you can download it. And it's, of course, just a starting point for future work. And I'd be more than happy to continue the discussion with anyone who's interested in small modular reactors in a circular economy. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Christina. Really appreciate that. Our next speaker is Mr. Jasper Sorolfanik. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Mr. Sorolfanik is with the Federal Office for the Safety of Nuclear Waste Management, BASE, in Germany. His talk today will focus on the characterization of light water reactor spent fuel with SMR under relevant initial composition and operational conditions. Please, Mr. Sorolfanik, the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much for the opportunity to present my work. So, as we all extensively can hear during this week, there is a large number of LWR, SMR concepts in different stages of development. One very simple consideration which we can see in comparison with a classical large reactor concept is that due to a smaller size, we have a higher neutron leakage. This directly results in a lower fuel burnup and more activation of the structural components. Now, there are some adaptations proposed to fuel and core design to mitigate that, such as, for example, a higher initial enrichment, or in case of MOX fuel, higher plutonium content, or use of different, more efficient reflectors, such as, for example, stainless steel. There are also some other adaptations, for example, that might not have direct correlation with the above concern, such as, for example, a lower power density, but this also has implications to some implications to the waste streams. There are, of course, some other modifications and adaptations proposed, but this was out of scope for this study. Now, the main question here is, how does the reactor size, together with some other adaptations, affect the physical parameters and the waste streams for such reactor fuel? So the case study was a typical PWR fuel. So as we know, there are several proposed SMR concepts which basically use fuel of very similar geometry and material composition as large PWRs. So this was taken as a reference case. And then the study was done to calculate the leakage as a function of reactor core height and reactor, well, radius, the radial dimension, which is represented by the number of fuel assemblies. And then, in addition, some nuclide vector components and integral parameters were calculated as a function of initial enrichment, burn-up, and also some reflector material and geometry. The latter I will not present here due to a shortage of time, but there is something in the full paper on it. About the computational model, all calculations were done with Serpent code and ENDF v7.1 library. I will not go into other details. So the 2D core model, the number of fuel assemblies in the 2D core model was between 37, which corresponds, for example, with some SMR concepts, or 241, which are the largest light water reactors available. And these calculations were done only with fresh fuel, with vacuum boundary conditions, and here a comparison of effective multiplication factor with the multiplication factor for the infinite medium was done. Similarly, to simulate axial neutron leakage, a 3D fuel pin model was done with vacuum axial boundary conditions, but reflective in the radial direction, and also without depletion. And then the third series of models was for depletion calculations, and that was a 2D assembly model, typical PWR 17 by 17 pin geometry. The depletion was done up to 100 megawatt days per kilogram to cover all predicted cases, and three different models with three different boundary conditions were done. So the quarter assembly model, which is a reflective boundary condition representative of an assembly which is somewhere in the middle of the core, and then edge and vertex models as well. And here mainly decay heat rate and some components of the nuclear reactor were observed. Now to present some results. So first, the neutron multiplication factor, which is directly linked with the neutron leakage. We can see that if we fit a function which is based on very simple theory, so homogeneous non-reflected system in diffusion approximation, we can see that it fits very well the actual Monte Carlo results in these models. And you can see with the yellow dot, you can see where a typical SMR of order of magnitude of 100 megawatt electric would be. And this, if we take a bit of uncertainty, results in a neutron leakage of the order of magnitude of 5 to 10%. Now, the next step, multiplication factor for an infinite medium. So this is, I think, a relatively simple study, well-known results as a function of burn-up and initial enrichment. But if we now take a case of a typical SMR, let's say if we assume 8% leakage and K infinity 0.9 at discharge, we can see that we have a reduction of about 15 megawatt days per kilogram of maximal achievable burn-up due to the size of the reactor. Now, this can be compensated by an increased initial enrichment of about 2.5% to arrive at a similar burn-up. Now, the next observed parameter, the decay heat rate, which is important, is an important constraint both for interim storage and final repository, and it also has safety implications for shorter time frames. As we know, there are some, in different time frames, there are different individual contributing nuclides which are dominant towards the total decay heat rate. And typically, for shorter cooling times up to a few decades, there is a dominant contribution. So for classical light water reactor fuel, there is a dominant contribution from the fission products, which are mostly have close to linear dependence with burn-up, with a few exceptions, and for higher cooling times, then the contributions from actinides become more important. For example, between 100 and 1,000 years, as it is well known, the main contributor is americium-241. Now, an important measure that one would want actually to minimize is the specific decay heat rate per burn-up increment, so basically per mass per burn-up, and this you can see on the right plot for cooling time of 30 years. This could be, and we can see that it is if we increase the initial enrichment and decrease the burn-up, this value is more beneficial. Of course, if we would change the cooling time or the composition of the fuel, we might arrive at different results. Now to look at some individual nuclides, so already mentioned americium-241, we can see that what is interesting, the functional dependence of burn-up depends also on the initial enrichment, but generally we can see that it decreases with increased initial with increased initial enrichment. Another nuclide, plutonium-239, which is also well important for several reasons. Here I would mention proliferation. Here we can see the opposite trend, so that if the initial enrichment is increased, then for higher burn-ups we produce more plutonium-239, and also in higher isotopic purity, which you cannot see from this plot. Americium-244 is a dominant contributor to the neutron emission for cooling times up to 100 years. And here we can see that its production is greatly reduced with increased initial enrichment. Strontium-90 is one of the important contributors for in the time frame of a few decades to the decay heat rate, but also one of the major beta-minus particle emitters. And here there are a bit smaller differences, but you have an increase with an increased initial enrichment, and this is mainly due to difference in the cumulative fission yield of strontium for U-235 and plutonium-239. Then one important nuclide that is not shown here is, for example, cesium-137, but there you have practically linear dependence, and it is no strong dependence on initial enrichment, linear dependence to burn-up. Then some other important fission products which are important for decay heat and gamma ray emission, cesium-134 and europium-154. So these are two of the few cases where there is a strong nonlinear dependence on burn-up. And in both cases, we can see a reduction with initial enrichment. And then maybe also to have a look at some very long-lived fission products. This is, there are not many. and they are many times ignored, but actually there is a handful of fission products that have half-lives also into hundreds of thousands to millions of years. And two important cases are, for example, iodine 129 and cesium-135. So for iodine, there are no major differences. This dependence is close to linear with burnup, and there is no major dependence on initial enrichment. Similar is for technetium-99, which is not shown here. But on the other hand, the cesium-135, with the increased initial enrichment, the inventory also significantly increases. And here even more, that is not shown on the plot. If we reduce the power density, then its inventory increases even more, because this is related with the reduced neutron capture in xenon-135, which we all know is a neutron poison. To conclude, the effects of reactor core size on some aspects of operation in waste streams were studied. A reference SMR PWR core has a neutron multiplication factor, according to these assumptions here, around 8% lower. But if we take different assumption, maybe this number can be slightly different compared to a large PWR, which may lead to an increase of X-core component activation. The maximum achievable burnup under these assumptions is about 15 megawatt days per kilogram lower. So this can be compensated using a higher initial enrichment, which inevitably leads to increased depleted uranium stockpiles. But on the other hand, there is a slight decrease in the decay heat rate, which may reduce requirements for interim storage and final disposal. And from the aspect of the long-term safety of high-level waste disposal, the impact of iodine 129 and technetium-99 is small. However, the production of cesium-135 is expected to be significantly larger, especially if the reactors are operating at lower power density compared to the larger counterparts. And the last point, which I have not shown here, is if we use a stainless steel refractor, it slightly increases the production of some transuranic nuclides and fission products. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Jasper. Now, following that, we have Ms. Tagba Yildirim. Ms. Yildirim is currently the Assistant General Engineer at WSP in Sweden, a globally recognized professional services providing company. She will present her scoping calculation of spent fuel from NuScale power module. Please, thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be here with you today. Thank you for joining this session. Today I will talk about scoping calculations of spent nuclear fuel from NuScale power module. Now, this is a collaborative work that was performed by me, Martin Amft from Uniper Nuclear Services, Fredrik Dahlin from KTH Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden, and Nils Sandberg from previously Swedish Radiation Safety Authority. I will first talk about some background of the work, and I will explain how I modeled the 3D geometry of the NuScale power module core with some assumptions. And we will look at some results in scoping calculation of spent nuclear fuel parts, and then we will comment on these results in regards to Swedish waste management system. NuScale power module, or NPM in short, is an integrated light water pressurized water reactor, which means the steam generator and the reactor pressure vessel is integrated into a metallic containment vessel. The core cooling is based on natural convection, which means passive safety, no main circulation pumps. For this study, we used the 50 megawatt electric design. We knew about the power upgrade to 77 megawatt electrics when we started the study, but we used the documents that NuScale submitted to NRC, and those ones are still based on 50 megawatt design. 12 of these modules can be combined into a Volgar plant with one control room, and all of these modules sit in the spent nuclear fuel pool while they're operating, so they're surrounded by borated water. Each module is about 25 meters long, 4.6 meters wide, and weighs about 600 tons. For this calculation, I used Serpent as well. Serpent is a three-dimensional neutron and photon transport code that uses Monte Carlo methods. It was developed at VTT Technical Research Center of Finland since 2004. It's quite easy to use. It's just a simple text file as an input, and we define some input parameters such as the fuel elements and materials, like what's the composition of the steel, what's the fuel enrichment. We define the geometry, how tall is the fuel rod, etc. And it's very advantageous to use Serpent because it's quite flexible. It can be adapted to any other reactor technology types, including Gen 4 reactors. And there's a big scientific community support because it is free for non-commercial uses. And this started as my master's thesis, so it was free for me at the time as well. Okay, so NuScale's equilibrium core is a bit different. They have 37 fuel assemblies in total, but these fuel assemblies have 3 different types of fuel enrichments, as well as 3 different burn-up histories. Now, I will explain what this means. To get to this equilibrium core in Serpent, I started modeling with just a fresh core with 3 different enrichments, which is shown in blue color. Then I burned this core for 2 years, which is 1 cycle for NuScale. So they refuel every 2 years. After burning the fresh core for 2 years, I end up with 37 once burned fuel assemblies. Then I replace the fuel assemblies on the periphery and in the center, shown in circles here, with fresh ones. And I end up with this configuration, where there's fresh on the periphery and in the center, and these reddish ones are once burned. Now I burn this configuration once more for 2 years. That becomes once burned on the periphery and in the center, and twice burned in the center. I do replacements once more. I put fresh on these edges and once burned right below them, and leave these twice burns as they are, which takes us to the equilibrium core. So this is what NuScale's core looks like. Each fuel rod is about 2.16 meters long, but just the fuel part is 2 meters. Now, the previous slide was how we got to the starting point. Now, this is what the simulations start with. I burned this core for 2 years, and there's the refueling. And each refueling, NuScale takes 13 fuel assemblies to the storage and reshuffles the other ones and added some fresh ones and goes back to the start. That means in each refueling, they have 13 fuel assembly wastes for interim storage. Lifetime of NuScale reactor is 60 years, which means 30 refueling cycles, which gives rise to 96 tons of spent nuclear fuel during the lifetime. If you normalize that to the electric energy produced over the lifetime, it's 35.6 tons per electric produced. Just as a point of comparison, a large PWR in Sweden produces on average 21.7 tons per electric. So SMR 35.6, large reactor 21.7. This is an illustration of the Swedish waste management routes. At the top there's the power plant, and during the operation or decommissioning there are different waste streams going to different repositories. The Swedish interim storage facility for spent nuclear fuel, which is called CLAB, is in operation since mid-80s, and currently there's about 9,000 tons of spent nuclear fuel stored there from originally 12 power plants. And the encapsulation plant and the final repository is licensed in 2021, and now they're under construction. These are how the canisters look like for the encapsulation process. They have been developed by SKB, which is the Swedish waste management company, since 1980s, according to the KBS3 system. Each canister holds either 4 pressurized water reactor assemblies or 12 boiling water reactor assemblies, and then they are encapsulated in this copper canister and then put in the Swedish bedrock 500 meters underground. However, NuScale power modules fuel assemblies are approximately 57% of the length of a conventional PWR fuel assembly, so NuScale's assemblies are shorter, about 57%. Therefore, we assumed that if needed, shorter canisters would have to be designed for that. The same design, just shorter. Here is the decay heat plotted over cooling time for the twice burned fuel assemblies. And the horizontal line at 240 watts indicates the acceptance criteria to be able to encapsulate the fuel assemblies. So basically, they need to cool down to a certain level before we can encapsulate them. And from the calculations, it takes about 20 years in wet interim storage until it is possible to encapsulate the NuScale power module fuel assemblies. Here are some relative decay heat contribution from 13 most relevant radionuclides in the NuScale power modules fuel assemblies. Well, 13 most relevant in terms of Swedish context. The dashed line is the total decay heat of these 13 isotopes. And the dominant isotope, of course, changes over time. So for the first 3 years, it's yttrium-90, cesium-130, barium-134. From 3 years to 60 years, it changes, and cesium-137, americium-241 gets more relevant, and after 60 years to 1,000 years, it's basically just americium-241 decaying down, and plutonium-239 and plutonium-240. However, this is also still a large light water cooled PWR, so it's quite similar to the decay heat contributions in a fuel assembly from a large scale PWR. I think that's all from me. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot. And our last speaker today is Mr. R. El-Joueia. Professor El-Joueia is with the Nuclear Technologies Institute at the King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technologies in Saudi Arabia. He will talk to us about his investigation of hydrodynamic and scaling of tristle fuel coaters for high temperature SMRs. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Glory. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'll be happy today to discuss with you a very interesting topic about the scaling up manufacturing process of trisonuclear fuel particle that used for the HDGR, either for a small size or large size or other types of reactor like the molten salt reactor. This work was supported by the DOE of United States and was conducted at the Missouri University of Science and Technology in Rolla, Missouri, under the supervision of my professor Mutanna Ad-Dahan, where we implemented sophisticated radioisotope-based measurement technique to investigate the hydrodynamic of the trisofuel particle coaters, a reactor called gas-solid spouted bed, and also coupled with computational fluid dynamic, and I will elaborate further in the next slides. So this is the outlines. We will go through the very high temperature reactors, the trisonuclear fuel coater, which is particles, and then the trisofuel coating process, and spouted bed, which is a gas solids contactor used to manufacture or coat the trisonuclear fuel particles. What is the motivation and the objectives behind this work, and then the experimental and measurement techniques and result and discussion. So the very high temperature reactor is very promising candidate among the 6 candidates of the 4th generation nuclear reactors. We have 2 designs in the VHTRs. One is the prismatic bed reactor and one is the bevel bed reactor. Okay. In both designs, we use the trisonuclear fuel particles, but the deployment of the trisonuclear fuel particle in these reactors is different between the prismatic and the bevel bed reactor. In the bevel, we have the graphite bevels where we insert 1,000 of number of trisonuclear fuel particles, but in the prismatic bed, we have a hexagonal graphite made where we also insert 1,000 of trisonuclear fuel particles. A very important point here to emphasize that the efficiency and safety of both of these reactors depends extremely on the quality of the trisonuclear fuel particles. Depends extremely on the quality of the trisofuel particles. So the acceptance level of defects trisofuel fuel particle to be implemented in such reactors is ultimately 0. So there should be no defects in the trisofuel particle used in such reactors. This is a very important point that derive us to investigate the hydrodynamic of the trisocoater, which is, I will elaborate further why the hydrodynamic is important for such a purpose. So it's very important here that the triso is the heart of the operation and safety of such reactor. Another important point is that I will elaborate further in the next slide regarding the scale up and why we need to produce large quantity and high quality, no defects, of trisofuel particles. So the triso, why the triso is very important, as demonstrated by the Department of Energy of the United States. The triso is the most robust nuclear fuel on Earth. Why is that? For many reasons. One of them that it can withstand high temperature operation, it can retain the fission product, and many other reasons. So the triso, what is the triso? Triso, basically, we have the fuel kernel made of UO2 or another fertile material, and then coated by different 4 layers. These different 4 layers are made of carbon and silicon carbide, which is the strongest one of this triso. The size of triso is maybe about 1 millimeter. So this is the triso. What is the triso coating process? The triso coating process is conducted in a gas solids contactor reactor used in the used in the chemical engineering. It's called spouted bed. What is this spouted bed? It's a gas solids contactor used for many other purposes, in gasification, combustion, mining purposes as well, but also it's used to handle the heavy coarse particle as we have the fuel kernel of high density, then apply the coating layers one after the other through a chemical vapor deposition method. What is the point here? It's a very important point here to emphasize that the process of coating the trisofuel is a delicate process. Also, the quality, as we mentioned before, there should be no defect. The process also is very complex since if there is a failure in one coating layer, the failure will apply for the other coating layer applied on the trisofuel particle. So the trisofuel particle, the quality of the trisofuel particle is either it's uniformly coated or non-uniformly coated, depends extremely on the hydrodynamic of this spouted bed. So what is this spouted bed exactly? Here we can see that we can have the fluid injected from the bottom of this spouted bed. It's a conical base and cylindrical above this conical base where the solids particle inside this. So the fluid injected here from the bottom of this conical base and created 3 regions inside this spouted bed. Spout inside this the reactor, annulus that's surrounding this spout, and the fountain atop of the spout and the annulus region. Then the circulations take place where we can apply the coating layers of the trisulfide. So the motivation here is the coating process of the trisulfide, and I'm going to show this study from Tsinghua University in China, where we can see that the density and density of the trisulfide particle, while we are applying the coating layers, it varies through the process of coating the particles. And this variation in the density and the size of the particles play a role in the hydrodynamic and our understanding of the hydrodynamic of this spouted bed coater. So it's very important, and it's very important here, and also we can see different particles, but both, again, impacted by the hydrodynamic of the system, either that's uniformly coated or non-uniformly coated. So moving on, we applied advanced measurement techniques and coupled with computational fluid dynamics to investigate the hydrodynamic of this spouted bed, then trying to address the scale-up issue of this spouted coater, since the existing size of this spouted bed coater currently are small. So we applied the scale-up. To apply the scale-up study, we manufactured two spouted bed of different size. One is 6-inch and one is a 3-inch to investigate the scale-up and also the hydrodynamic, where we run a series of experimental and computational studies. So the first technique we applied here is called gamma-ray computed tomography. Okay, it's one of its kind. It's a highly sophisticated technique that can rotate 360 degrees around the object that needs to take a scan, and then give us the gas hold-up and solids hold-up distribution among the system that we need to investigate. Second technique we applied is called radioactive particle tracking technique, where we used or make one particle, a tracer particle, that move freely within the solids bits or the other particles, and then we gain a 3D velocity fields of the system. So we apply sophisticated techniques coupled with computational fluid dynamics to address a scale-up issue related to the spouted bed coater. So the first thing, we try to assess the current scale-up methodologies found in the literature regarding this scale-up, the scale-up of the gas-solid spouted bed. We assessed the current scale-up methodology, and we found it's not sufficient to obtain similarity. Then we came up with a novel scale-up methodology that based on matching the gas hold-up distribution between the small and size and the large size of the spout bed. So the scale-up says the following: if you have two different spouted bed of different sizes but geometrically similar, and you apply different conditions, and you obtain the gas hold-up matching between the small size and the large size spouted bed, this can lead to obtain hydrodynamic similarity between the large and small size spouted bed, which means successful scale-up approach. So we applied the methodology, our novel methodology of scale-up, using the CT techniques at different dimensionless heights between the small and large size spouted bed, where we obtained a match gas hold-up distribution between the small and large size spouted bed. This is the profile of the solids hold-up among the height of these spouted beds at all the regions, either the spout, the annulus, and the fountain. And we can see here that we obtain a matching gas hold-up profile between the two spouted beds. And when we apply different conditions that not give us this similar gas hold-up profile, we don't obtain the gas hold-up distribution among the different sizes of the spouted bed. So also another important point, it's about the residence time distribution, where the particle take a place. What is the residence time of the particle among the spout where the coating is applied? So we also obtain matching and hydrodynamic similarity between large and small size spouted bed applying our scale-up methodology. Another one is the parameter is obtained using the radioactive particle tracking technique, is the particle cycle time spent in each region of these spouted beds, and also we obtain similarity between the large and small size spouted bed. This is how we validated our techniques also between the CT and the RBT, where we can we have a good result between the spout shape among the two obtained by the two techniques. That's it, but here is another study worth mentioning here, conducted by Wang Xuan from about a spouted bed, not to manufacture the trisonuclear fuel particle, but also as a nuclear reactor. It's a conceptual study, okay? So we have a spouted bed to manufacture the trisofuel particles, but also we could have a spouted bed that operates this trisofuel particle. Why is that? Because a spouted bed can give us good heat transfer and a good circulation of the particles among the bed, and they obtained a very good results that constant mixing potentially leads to a uniform burn-up of the uranium particles inside this spouted bed. So I think I reached my final the final of my presentation, but again, trying to emphasize the outlook of the fuel technology, coating technology, how it's important, what are we going to apply in the future. We may apply different coating layers or different concepts of fuel. This is why it's important about the spouted bed that we mentioned in this study. Thank you so much.
Okay, so a big thank you to all of our presenters so far. Thank you. And now it's over to you in terms of if you have any questions. Just a reminder, if you have a question before you ask, can you say your name and the country that you're representing or the organization you're representing, and please let us know who your question is directed to. So, over to you. And wave your hand really high so I can see it. Anyone? Yes, please, over in the back.
Thank you. My name is Vladan Ljubenov from the IAEA, unit head of the Decommissioning and Remediation Unit in the Safety and Security Department. Thanks to the presenters, and I was impressed by the spent fuel burn-up analysis and all the calculations, modeling done. My question is to the authors of these studies. Do they do similar works to calculate, estimate the activation in the surrounding structures, which will then be important input for the decommissioning, planning and implementation? Thank you.
Thanks. So, Gasper, Tuba, who wants to go first? Gasper.
I will speak on behalf of my organization base. So there are indeed plans also to calculate the activation of the surrounding structural components. I have personally not done that, but there is also, yes, intention to do that.
Thank you for the question. We actually, as the same group, just published a paper in a journal about low and intermediate level waste volumes from this same simulation about NuScale, and we gave which parts of the RPV, which parts of the reflector or the support plates or the containment vessel is long-lived, intermediate activated, short-lived, and how it should be separated. So maybe I refer you to our paper, and that has a lot more details about that.
Thank you. Is there another question over here? Yes, please.
My name is Mario Müller from Austria, Emerald Horizon. It's not a question, it's a comment and maybe inspiration. We are here now for 3 days. We are talking about at the first conference on small modular reactors. And I observe that we all here want to place something new, and we want to show the world that SMRs could be a solution for the climate change, but we use the word fuel, and we use words like burning and burn up. Maybe we should also think about using different words in order to be different to the fossil fuels. Maybe we can call it, instead of fuel, we can just call it source, and the process, what we call today burning, could be a word like unfolding the energy of nuclear mass. I think it should be an inspiration for us to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody, any reflections on that? Well, thank you. I think, sorry, Amparo, you have a...
Something obvious. I think it will change the whole industry terminology for the last 50 years. But thank you. It's, somebody has to raise this, and it's a very good observation and thoughts. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, please.
Hi, it's Paul Atkin from the Environment Agency in the United Kingdom. I work in regulation of early reactor assessment, and I'm really interested in the talk we had about the circular economy. As a regulator, we're really interested in trying to embed that thinking for environmental aspects now. Do you have a good example of where you've seen that embedded in any other legislation or regulatory regimes?
I assume that's directed to me. Thank you very much for the question. And in short, no. I wish. I've been promoting it. I've been saying it, that that is key enabler of the thinking, right? That the challenge, I think, for the whole industry, but starting with the regulator, is regulations were, and for good reasons, written for safety, not for sustainability or circular economy. But if you put that mindset, as you're alluding to, a different picture emerges. And I think it's key to put it in the regulation. So I can only support and say, let's go there, because that's the way to get to sustainability. But if I've seen an example, no, unfortunately not. I've seen examples of the contrary, where the regulations assume, for example, that everything at a site must be removed, or you cannot credit for your financial guarantees reuse or recycling of materials. So that goes against, it doesn't enable, it in fact hinders, in my opinion. So we can talk.
Thank you. And I can say that currently we're working with member states to draft a new safety guide on national policies and strategies for managing spent fuel, radioactive waste, decommissioning and remediation. And we're actually trying to weave in some of those important points about circular economy and sustainability within that guide. So if, as member states, you want to hear more about that, please shout and we'll make sure it's in there. So thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Yeah, Tibor Rapan from Slovakia, from company Avis. I have a question to my colleagues from Sweden. We are talking about circular economy and so on, and my question is related. There is a Swedish company that is now working on the lead-cooled fast reactor, and there are also other companies that are working on advanced technologies. And my question is, how strong and definitive is the decision of Sweden to put spent fuel directly to the disposal? If there are no ideas about the reprocessing and the reuse of nuclear material that is included in spent fuel?
I can go first. So actually, I asked the same question to my manager's manager at some point, and since I'm not Swedish, I'm from Turkey, and I've been in Sweden for only a couple of years. From what I understand, they don't have any reprocessing intentions at the moment, and it seemed to me that they're quite decided on putting all of that in the geological repository. But especially, as you mentioned, the Blikalla, the new reactors, new SMRs improving in Sweden, maybe in the future it might look different and they might go to different strategies. But it's a good point. Thank you for the question.
Christine?
Yes, I can't speak for the Swedish nuclear fuel and waste management company, SKB, but I used to work there. In fact, it's how I got into the industry in the first place. But I did hear the president of SKB speak very recently, and he emphasized that SKB's current scope, current plans are all based on their owners, and their owners own the current facilities. So that's what they're planning for, that's what they're optimizing for, and what they're applying for when it comes to extension of the low and intermediate level waste facility or the new spent fuel repository. Meaning the Swedish regulations really put the responsibility on the owner and the generator of waste. So it doesn't answer a specific question or a specific case, but it means that whoever will produce electricity or heat or whatever using a nuclear reactor, they will be responsible for having a plan to take care of the waste from cradle to grave, and that will look different, most likely depending on who the implementer is. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dorian Calderin with the IEA, the Commissioning and Safety Group. Thank you so much for your presentations. I have two questions, and it's directly to the colleagues on the spent fuel simulations. So the first question is, could you comment on the uncertainty of your models on the spent fuel, given that it feels like it's an adaptation from the current PWR and we don't have any node scale to actually validate the results? Could you comment on that uncertainty? And the second question is for the colleague of the high temperature gas reactor TRISO fuel. I think it was mentioned that the rejection rate is 0, so all particles need to pass. So I was wondering if you have any insight what happened to the particles that don't pass. Could they be recycled or they be treated as waste? Thank you.
That was naughty. That was 2 questions, Dorian. So firstly, for our modelers, managing uncertainty. Tuba.
Okay. About my model's uncertainties. So first, it of course comes from the fact that it's a Monte Carlo simulation. And second, not all the data to design the model as accurate as we can was publicly available. So I had to estimate the concentration of the burnable poison, which I don't remember if I mentioned in my slides, but some of the fuel assemblies have gadolinium as burnable poison, and NuScale states the concentration of that as up to 8%, which gives the impression that it's different concentrations in different parts of the core, but I just put 8% in all of the core, all of the assemblies.
What was your enrichment at discharge? Do you remember?
What's my enrichment, sorry?
At discharge of the spent fuel?
I don't remember that, but that should be in the paper.
Maybe a conversation with coffee.
Yeah. Thanks.
Exactly.
Gus, would you have anything to add?
I would. There are, I would say, 3 to 4 types of different uncertainties. So the uncertainty in my study, the uncertainty related with material and geometry data, I would say is 0 because it was a fictive study. The uncertainty related with Monte Carlo counting statistics was very small, so typically of the order of magnitude of 0.1%, and for some higher, heavier actinides, maybe direction 0.5%, even though it was not shown. But the largest uncertainty is probably originating from nuclear data, and this is also very dependent on the nuclides. So for fission products, it is of the order of magnitude of 1%, and in some cases maybe a bit more, and for the actinides, it's ranging from a few percent up to 10%, order of magnitude 10% for curium.
And the second question,
Hello, is it working?
It is.
Yes. Thank you for the questions. Yes, this is very important. Yes, but it's beyond my study. But I can elaborate about this issue. So I think the people, when they come out of the reactor, they inspect it, okay, based on the gas or the fission product released from this, using different measurement techniques. If they inspect that there is high fission product release from this fission bubble, it does not return back to the reactor, okay. Also, there is ongoing activity regarding the recognition of each bubble, okay, either through coding or using nuclear techniques or non-nuclear techniques to know this bubble or that. How long does it stay inside the reactor, and when it's come out, how do you recognize this bubble or that based on coding or based on any other methods?
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the session there, and I think we've learned a lot of important information. We've learned about how the design of the fuel or the source, the quality of the fuel production, the core size, the burn-up, the enrichment, and so on, obviously impacts the efficiency of the SMR, but also impacts the spent fuel and the waste that will need to be managed, and the impact that that has on the long-term safety case for disposal facilities. We heard about that IAEA is developing roadmaps for managing that spent fuel, radioactive waste. And coming back to what I said at the start, we talked about the opportunity that exists now to design for a circular economy. So that includes minimizing waste and design to maximize reuse, including reuse of sites. With that, I really want to thank all of our presenters again. Thank you very much. You may now leave to have a coffee, but please make sure that you have a look at the posters. So there's some excellent posters on this topic and other topics. And then, yes, come back at 4 o'clock for a continuation of the topic in here. And then there's topics on security, safeguards, economics, and so on in other rooms. So thank you for your attention.
Won't you teach me how to love and learn? There'll be nothing left for me to yearn. Think of me burn and let me hold your hand. I don't wanna face the world in tears. Please think again, I'm on my knees. Sing that song to me, no reason to repair. This is the rhythm of the night, oh yeah. The rhythm of the night. This is the rhythm of my life, oh yeah. The rhythm of my life. Oh yeah. This is the rhythm of the night, oh yeah. The rhythm of the night. just like a song. I want more berries and that summer feeling, so wonderful and warm. Breathe me in, breathe me out. I don't know if I could ever go without. I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know if I could ever go without watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar high. Strawberries on a summer evening. Baby, you're the end of June. I want your belly and that summer feeling, getting washed away in you. Breathe me in, breathe me out. I don't know if I could ever go without watermelon sugar high, 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 watermelon sugar high. I just wanna taste it, I just wanna taste it, watermelon sugar high. Tastes like strawberries on a summer evening, and it sounds just like a song. I want your belly in a summer feeling. I don't know if I could ever go without watermelon sugar high, 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 watermelon sugar high. I just wanna taste it, I just wanna taste it, watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar high, watermelon sugar high.
If I could turn the page in time, then I'll rearrange just a day or two. Close my eyes. But I couldn't find a way, so I'll settle for one day to believe in you. Tell me lies. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies, tell me lies. Oh no, no, you can't disguise. You can't disguise, no, you can't disguise. Although I'm not making plans, I hope that you understand there's a reason why. Close your eyes. No more broken hearts. We're better off apart. Let's give it a try. Tell me lies. Tell
true. Funny how it seems, always in time, never at line for dreams. Hat over heels, went to a tube. This is the sound of my soul. This is the sound. I bought a ticket to the world. Now I've come back again. Why to find it hard, write the next line? I want the truth to be said. I know this much is true. I know this much is true. With a fill in my hand and a pill in my tongue, to solve the nerves that have just begun. Listening to Marvin all night long. This is the sound of my soul. This is the sound, always slipping from my hands. Sands a time of its own. Take your seaside arms, write the next line. I want the truth to be known. I know this much is true. I know this much is true. I bought a ticket to the world. Now I've come back again. Why to find it hard, write the next line? I want the truth to be said. I know this much is true. I know this much is true.
sight to see. It's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed for slowing down to take a look at me. Come on, baby, don't say maybe. I gotta know if your sweet love is gonna save me. We may lose and we may win, though we'll never be here again. So open up and climb in, so take it easy. When I'm riding down the road, try to loosen my load, got a world of trouble on my mind. Looking for a lover who won't blow my cover. She's so hard to find. Take it easy, take it easy. Don't let the sound of your own wheels make you crazy. Come on, baby, don't say maybe. I gotta know if your sweet love is gonna save me.
Flocking to the sea, crowds of people wait for me. Seagulls scavenge, seal ice cream, worries vanish within my dream. Left my soul there, down by the sea. I lost control here, living free. I left my soul there, down by the sea. I lost control here, living free. Fishing balls sail past the shore. No singing midday anymore. The sun is shining, the water's clear. Just see you and walk along the pier. Left my soul there, down by the sea. I lost control here, living free. Left my soul there, down by the sea. I lost control here, living free. But mind the worst. Some good song, it's worth the cost. I'd love to stay home, a restless fuss, and lies on the phone. Left my soul there, down by the sea. I lost control here, living free. Left my soul there, down by the sea. I lost control here, living free.
Coming out and dance if you get the chance. We're gonna speed on a road. All I wanna know is how far you wanna go. Fighting for survival. Underneath the stars where we park our cars. Ain't showing signs of stopping. Pretty little girls naked to the curb. Ready to lay under coffin. If you wanna go, I'm gonna go. I got a fire burning, gonna take my hand. Hope you see a man. Baby, it's gonna be a big one. Baby, it's gonna be a big one. When we see the lights and we the fights, it's gonna be a stunner. I've got something here. If you give me one more pick, I'm gonna color on. I don't wanna say what I have to say. If I kick it up now, if I wanna go, I'm gonna go. I'm going back down south now. I'm going back down south. I'm going back down south now. If you wanna go, I'm going back down south now. Come and take my hand. I'm going back down south now. When we see the lights and we those fights, I'm going back down south now. I'm going back down south now. I'm going back down south now.
Never seen you looking so lovely as you do tonight. I've never seen you shine so bright. Did it good. I've never seen so many men ask you if they wanted to dance. They're looking for a little romance. They've given half a chance. And I've never seen the dress you're wearing, all the highlights in your hair that catch your eyes. I have been blind, lady in red is dancing with me, cheek to cheek. There's nobody here. It's just you and me. It's where I wanna be, but I hardly know. This beauty by my side.
consideran un fuel cycle o es en SMR? Fuel, ¿Eso es cómo se llama? Espera. Que te busco la... ¿Cómo se llama? Sí, está bueno. Vamos a hablar de fuel, advanced fuels y fuel cycle. Ya, vale. The previous session. Is a continuation? Yeah. Okay, but try to end your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ana Gomez, and I'm the head of the Safety Assessment section here at the IAEA. I'm delighted to co-chair this session, which is continuation from the previous one. We are going to discuss advanced fuels and other aspects of the fuel cycle for SMRs. And just a little bit of background, my section deals with design safety of nuclear power plants. So as you can imagine, an important aspect of the design safety is the safety of the cores and the fuels. And we are doing a lot of work on the fuels and cores of non-water-cooled reactors or reactors of generation 4. And actually, maybe interested for you to know that next year we're going to have a technical meeting on this topic, and of course we're all invited. And now I'm going to pass the floor to my colleague Amparo.
Okay, thank you, Ana. So good afternoon, those who attended the previous session. My name is Amparo González Espartero. I'm technical lead of spent fuel management in the nuclear energy department. So we are combining the two experiences from safety and nuclear energy department. And we have 4 speakers in this section. We are sure that all themes we are going to tackle are very interesting. So transportation as an enabler to move in the, not only in the back end, also in the front end of the fuel cycle, how to enabling the production of fuels from HELIO, and also the fuel cycles and the behavior of ATF fuels in the core. Since we have we have 4 speakers. We are lucky we have more time for discussions at the end of the session. We thought that maybe it's worth it to have time for only one question after each speaker, and then after we will have like 20 minutes for a general discussion all together. So be prepared if you would like to highlight or clarify something after the presentation of each speaker. And saying that, and not to consume more time with the presentations, I would like to present the first speaker is Marina Kostic from Nukem Technologies Engineering Services from Germany, facilitating SMR fuel fabrication from HELIO, exide fluoride uranium. So please, Marina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear chairwomen, I am delighted to present the presentation facilitating SMR fuel fabrication from HALOI UF6. I give first the overview of my presentation. I will first talk a little bit about Nukem's fuel production history. Then I will repeat, because we have learned everything of that already, in these 3 days, major SMR concepts and their fuel, looking from this aspect. Then I will talk about SMR fuels from HALOI UF6 deconversion. Fourth topic is related to the metallic uranium versus HTR triso fuel production route. And then last but not least, a few words about high-temperature small modular reactors. So let's begin a little bit about history of my company, Nukem. Nukem is, in fact, a fuel production company that was founded a long time ago And in the Constellation Nukem Siemens fuel plant, it exists in Hanau, Wolfgang, Germany, or it existed, better to say, so that this story has begun in 1950s. Fuel assemblies from uranium metal were produced for FRR2 in Karlsruhe and for ECO in Ispra. In the 60s, from uranium RLX, that was up to 93% uranium-235, means high fuel. It was also the fuel assembly for material test reactors. In the 70s, there was a AUC pilot plant, once again high-enriched fuel for oxide-based UO2 fuel assemblies, and it was the in fact, production route for all German reactors. After that, in 1980s to 2000, AUC uranium metal plant was planned in that time for Batam, Indonesia, and also for MTR by Siemens. Halle, once again, in this case, not so high enriched, but only 20% enriched uranium-235, where rework and recycling was included. In the 1960s, German HTR program has begun, and Nukem was responsible really for everything, for specification, element design, and manufacturing process. In the 1970s, the HTR Fuel Hoburg in Hanau was founded, and this is the company that really produced in the past 250,000 fuel spheres for the experimental AVR reactor in Jülich and 1 million fuel spheres for the THTR 300 in Hammendrup. In 2000, we were involved in PBMR project in South Africa. We were responsible for basic detail and procurement design, but unfortunately, because of the financial reasons, this project was stopped. And last but not least, once again, in 2010, the laboratory scale facilities were designed and also were to be found in Indonesia and South Korea. Not going into details, but I want to speak something about the history of HTRs. On the right-hand side, you see the German history that began with AVR reactor, then went to THTR reactor, a lot of another HTR reactors like RDE, PBMR, HTMR 100 or VGM. On one right side, on the left side in China, HTR-10 and HTR-PM, and last but not least in the United States, the XA-100. On the left-hand side, you have the story, the UK story of HTR facilities. That is something that we also have heard today. Beginning with Dragon, we are Peach Bottom, we are Fort SP, then HTTR and GT. MHR and another facilities. So this kind of nuclear power plant has a long history. I want to remember all of us what are small modular reactors, so up to 300 megawatt electrical. We can speak about liquid metal cooled SMRs with uranium metal alloy, with MOX plutonium or depleted uranium, with fast neutrons, coolant, NRHG, PBSN, and example for that is the sodium-cooled fast reactor. In the next, let me say, group, we have water-cooled SMRs with the UOX pellets, MOX, thermal neutrons, light water as coolant, and pressurized water reactor as example. Molten salt reactors with UF4 in molten salt, also with plutonium or thorium. Neutrons can be, as we have learned, fast or thermal. Coolant is molten salt with different elements, and example of that is molten salt fast reactor. And then, last but not least, my favorites, I have to say, gas-cooled reactors with HTGRs, with UO2 triso particles. We have heard a lot of them in the last session, with thermal neutrons and helium as a coolant, and example for that is HTGR reactor. Let's look what can be produced from Halloy UF6 deconversion. So beginning with UF6, that is 20% enriched, we are coming to AUC, ammonium uranyl carbonate. So from that we can get U3O8. That via tracer particles gives our fuel compacts or fuel spheres. Then from AUC we can get UO2 for oxide pellet-based SMRs. We can get UF4 for molten salt SMRs. Then we can get uranium itself for fast neutron SMRs. And in the scrap, by recycling, we can get uranium nitrate and once again give that to AUC to close the cycle. Because of the lack of the time, I am really not going to read this different equation that I have put on the left-hand side, as I know this presentation will be available after the conference. So you can see in the first of this equation how we can get AUC, in the second how the NH3CO2H2O is get, in the third one how the UF4 is get, and then last but not least in the fourth one uranium with calcium difluoride, and about that I want perhaps to spend a few words. So in this fourth equation, we are talking about calciothermic reduction inside graphite cubicle, and normally filled with this mixture of these two different materials, UF4 and calcium, then heating up to ignition, and then the regulus is something like 90% yield. And as I have already shown the slide before, the scrap can be recycled via recovery. The pictures that you can see here are the historical pictures taken in different facilities of Nukem in the past, because nowadays we do not have an industrial facility producing this kind of different fuel elements in Germany. So once again, starting with tracer fuel production route, so U3O8 is giving the tracers, so fuel compacts and fuel spheres in high temperature reactors, as a reminder. Let's look in a few aspects how these HTR fuel production kernels can be set up. So we are beginning from the kernel casting. That is drip casting of kernels in the first step. Then ADU, ammonium diuranate precipitation from uranyl nitrate and additives takes place, and after that we are getting the UO2, the old one, or now very modern, thanks to US program and AGR, UCO, uranium carbonate oxide particles. What is then the next step by the kernel casting? The so-called aging, washing, drying of these kernels. Then you can see on the right-hand side how the vibro-dropped and dried kernels, these small balls are looking like. After that, calcining and sintering is taking place in different oven. And how does it look like then in reality? You can see once again on the right-hand side with calcined and sintered particles, kernels. And the last step in this production of kernels at this stage is the so-called SSSP, sieving, sorting, sampling, and portioning. In the next step of the production, we are dealing with a coating facility, about which we have also learned a lot in the presentation in last session. Nukem has developed a very specific coater that is, of course, the key equipment to achieve the standard quality. The procedure, how the coater is established, is the so-called chemical vapor deposition, and it is using different chemicals like acetylene, propylene, and methyl trichlorsilane, shortened here as MTS. On the right-hand side, you can see the 3D model of this coating or coater facility with the different parts of it: CVD, off-gas exhaust, graphite heating element, water cooling jacket, temperature sensors, and fluidized bed nozzle. And then at the end, once again, like by kernels, we are coming to the sieving, sorting, sampling, and portioning. In the next step, we are compacting our coated kernels. So fuel compacts or fuel spheres are then produced via pressing in different pressing machines. OCPs, overcoated particles, are by that procedure filled into pressing molds. Here you can see as one of the examples the fuel compacts, and on the right-hand side, fuel spheres from the Hoboken-Hanau facility. Next step, by the producing of the fuel elements for the HDR, is once again coming to the different oven. First of all, the carbonizing is induced by 800 degrees. Then annealing, and at a pretty much higher temperature, is coming, that is 1,900 degrees. And last but not least, a very, very sophisticated final quality control is taking place. A few words about uranium recovery to close the cycle. From U3O8, we are via the solution in HNO3 coming to the UO2, NO3-2. And after carbon particles filtering, we get clean chemical that I have mentioned a minute ago. After that, precipitation is taking place, and after precipitation and filtration, we are getting the ADU, ammonium diuranate, and up are the unsaturated polyester resins, so that at the end of this story, we are getting nuclear-grade uranium-308, so we are closing the circle by this production of the fuel. In the next two slides, I want to say something about high-temperature SMRs, although we have learned that. As we know, all reactor designs established to Gen 4 can be designed as SMRs, but by HTRs, we have very, very high temperatures that make possible not only to produce electricity, but also to produce heat and to make another different industrial applications. So, and on the other side, a very high temperature reactor have the outlet of 1,000 degrees. What are advantages of these reactor types? Replacing fossil fuel, then synchronous electricity and hydrogen production, and of course, a very high thermal conversion efficiency. By high temperature SMRs, we have less fissile materials that increases safety, of course, standardization of the components, integration of design, and through that, of course, the complexity is reduced. Then flexible application in industrial cluster areas, as I have already mentioned, and that means that we have here less grade restriction. My PhD was on the safety of HTRs in Jülich Nuclear Research Center, and it was a longer time ago, and since this time, I really like HTR concept because of its inherent safety. Retention of fission products, co-meltdown is impossible because heat can always dissipate, even without an active helium cooling. Small core power density and large heat capacity and temperature stability of graphite-based reactor cores. So that was a small excursion in the world of HTRs and another type of fuel. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marina, for this very comprehensive presentation about the chemical processes to fabricate isotope particles. At the bottom of my heart, well, the chemistry is very interesting. So they have time for a brief question. Is there any question from the floor? Yes, please.
Thank you for this interesting presentation. I just have a question. Is there a pathway to close the fuel cycle from the spent trees of fuel?
In this moment, no. As we have learned, I am speaking about closing the cycle by production of different parts. That is a challenging issue. Perhaps somebody of the young people here in the room can solve that and get the Nobel Prize. In this moment, no. Okay.
our next speaker, a great pleasure to introduce you to Adam Lever, Nuclear Transport Solutions in the United Kingdom, and he's going to talk to us about the development of a versatile Type B transport package to support the front-end fuel cycle of Generation 4 reactors.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all well. So today I'll be talking about a Type B package that Nuclear Transport Solutions have been designing over the last 18 months or so. So very quickly, I'll be talking through a bit of the background of the project, how it came about, the HALEU fuel cycle, so what part we're getting involved in, assumed contents, and the design process we've been going through. So first off, Nuclear Transport Solutions, we've got a good history of designing quality transport packages for varying nuclear material, and thankfully this meant that we were able to get a nuclear fuel fund. So this is a lump sum from, some money spread over a certain period of time from DESNZ, the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, and this money was going to help us develop a IAEA SSR6 transport package up to TRL4. This package will be used for transporting two types of HALEU. So this would be HALEU powder in the form of UO2 and also triso fuel. So where does that fit in? So that UO2 HALEU powder fits in post-enrichment and prefabrication. So that's the main area we're looking at. And then the triso fuel that comes in the post fabrication and going towards the going into the reactor. So what are the assumed contents? So we've looked at some cans that we've looked at. These are from an NL report. So it was over in the States. We got this can design from. So there wasn't too much. This was, I think, concept level design. So it still could change. Have we deemed it worth enough for developing? As mentioned, it would have UO2 powder. We weren't too sure whether it was going to be up or down blended, this material, and for that reason we assumed worst case. We went for down blended, so it would be military grade down blending to that 20%. And this material would be in a package, and these packages will be inside a standard 20-foot ISO container, which makes it a bit easier for manoeuvring and getting about the world. The design philosophy, so we want to try and utilise as much COTS material as possible. So COTS is commercially off the shelf, so this is standard components and parts that you can get from most suppliers across the world. This means it's much cheaper and it's also a lot more sustainable. There's an interchangeable basket design, so we would have one basket design for the HALEU powder, one basket design for triso. So having that the same package design means, it's much easier for manufacturing and getting there, and also the versatility means that it's much easier for operating on. We want to try and maximise that UO2 powder payload. This means that when we're doing a shipment, we can try and get as much material in as possible, providing value for the customer. Something we've also done is use features from existing NTS packages. So there's some features which have worked really well, and we thought we may as well try and get involved in this process. Main reason being is that we only had a short time scale, so we've had just under 2 years to start from pretty much scratch up until the TRL4 as mentioned. And finally, we want to try and incorporate a multiple water barrier design. As some of you in the room may be aware, criticality is a bit of an issue, or a bit of a concern, should I say. So having a multiple water barrier means that there's something in the regulations talking about water ingress. So if you have this multiple water barrier, you can try and get around that. However, with the two containment boundaries you have, you do need to test them prior to transport. So up next, so this is iteration 3. This is the first significant design that NTS developed. We had an integrated technical team, so this includes design, analysis, shielding and criticality teams. So we really got together to develop this. Principally, it's a Russian doll effect. So we've got the main body, then we have the two containment boundaries, the multiple water barrier, an outer containment vessel and an inner containment vessel. In the inner containment vessel, there's a stool at the base, which you might be able to see is a slightly lighter colour grey, and this means that a basket can sit on top of it. So this basket consists of 19 standard pipes, and these pipes can fit 2 of those HALEU cans in. We have 2 containment vessel lids, so this is what forms that multiple water barrier. Then we have the main body, which is stainless steel, and that yellowish colour, that's wood, which is a shock absorbing material. So this is how the package will be assembled. So first off, you have the empty HALEU transport package. Then you take the outer containment vessel, load it in, and make sure it engages with those engagement points. Take the inner containment vessel and load that into the outer. Then you rotate that anti-clockwise to fit that in position. Next up, this is the stool that I mentioned. You fit that in the bottom of the inner containment vessel. Take the basket, which is assumed to be loaded, load that into the package. Next up, you load the inner containment vessel lid. So rotate that anti-clockwise, and then there's jacking screws in a bayonet lid design, which engages the lid. Then repeat that for the outer containment vessel. This uses a very, very similar design. So you rotate that through. And then torque up the jacking screws to fix that also in position. And then finally, take the package lid and put that on, and then fit the 8 bolts. So I wish it was as easy as saying, oh, this is ready for transport now, but it's not. We have to do some analysis. So I'll show you a very quick animation on the left-hand side here. So for all the packages we do, we need to, especially with it being a Type B, we need to simulate drop tests. So what that was doing there was it was a base corner drop test, and the wood deformed as intended. However, a lot of the energy was going through the end cap, which is a standard dished end cap, through the stool and into the basket. So a lot of the energy wasn't being absorbed by the package and was going straight into the inner containment vessel lid, and this actually formed a lid gap, which broke the containment boundary. So we had to try and sort that out pretty quickly. And as a result of this, we tried implementing a new feature in the lid. So in the bottom right image, you'll see there's an upside down U-shaped profile. So this is trying to help the lid deform. However, it was a big design change. The package also has some trunnions, and there's the engagement points for lifting, and in a side drop down. These were actually acting as punches, so it was actually deforming the containment vessels quite a bit again, breaking the containment boundary. Which led us on to iteration 4. So fundamentally it's still the same using that Russian doll effect. However, it is quite a bit smaller now. So we've gone down from those 19 standard pipe channels to 7. So we've gone from 38 HALEU cans now down to 14. And to compensate that, the containment vessels and the package have been reduced in size. As mentioned, the trunnions were acting as a punch, so we removed them, and now we've got some forklift pockets in the base. So that will be now the new method of manoeuvring this package, and then a skirt fitted round. And finally, here, that's a internal impact limiter. So what that does is try and absorb some of the energy from the basket going into the package. So we reran some of the, so first off, so the iteration 3, so that was the bigger package. So we could only fit 3 of those inside the 20-foot ISO container, as mentioned. However, with the reduction in size, we can get 8 inside a 20-foot ISO. So although the packages are much smaller, we're actually getting roughly the same payload into a 20-foot ISO container. And now we've got forklift pockets, it's much easier for loading into this container. So we started to substantiate the design. So we're looking at, doing drop tests again. There's still some work to be done. In the bottom right image, as you can see, the bolt is deformed a little bit. There was too much plastic strain there. However, there were quite a lot of improvements from the reduction in size. And then on the right-hand side, there's some thermal analysis. So we're evaluating what happened if a single block ignites of wood. And we do have significant margin there. So there's not too much to worry about there. So next up, shielding. As you've be able to see in the table, we are quite a bit away from the regulatory dose rate limits. So this is, it's quite good. It's not too much of a concern. And we got these values from doing 2 shielding models to kind of verify our results. The reason why the results are very good is because the powder we've assessed is self-shielding, and also the can design we've looked at is quite thick, so that's also helping. Next up is criticality. So when we're looking at this design iteration, we're looking at different scenarios for ACT, and it does show that it is feasible, so that in the regulations you can't have a K-effective rate for criticality above 0.92. So in certain scenarios we are below that, so it does show there is legs on this design. Next up is iteration 5, which all this analysis led us to. So again, there's not too many changes. The main change is up at the top here, there's some fabricated plates, so that's to try and help with impact performance. The lid and the bayonet mechanism have now been incorporated into one design, so they work with each other. And also the base has changed quite a bit. The forklift pockets have been widened, which means it's more stable during moving around facilities, and it's also a lot more stable when resting on the floor. So again, we looked at the impact. Those fabricated plates on the top did work as intended. It did really help. However, we are still getting some lid gaps in drop down, so there's still some margin we need to work on. And also, we didn't assess welding too much. That is something we need to do and something we are currently doing at the moment. Next up to criticality. So this assessment was a little bit different to what we did previously. What we were doing was looking at how the package performs with shock absorber loss. So that's if the wood was to burn away after a fire test. And as mentioned, so the 0.92 K effective, we're exceeding that about 50% shock absorber loss. So from this point, we knew we need to try and need to make sure that the shock absorber stays intact following ACT. So this is a manufacturing demonstrator. So as part of the programme, part of the funding from the Nuclear Fuel Fund, the Nuclear MRC, over in Rotherham in the north of England, they're going to be making a HCP model for us. The 2 central images you can see, there are some welding trials. This will soon be followed up by some electron beam welding. And on the right-hand image, that is the upper neck for the inner containment vessel. So they're getting underway with this, and this piece of work is due to finish end of March in 2025. So as you can imagine, there's quite a few challenges. One of them with criticality, there wasn't that much data, especially the TRISO. When we're looking at the TRISO fuel, there's really not much data on it, so we've not assessed it in too great a detail. But we are currently working with international colleagues, clients and potential customers to try and get some more information on this to substantiate it further. From a security point of view, we're currently classed as a Category 2 movement, which means you need varying security measures, and this is not what we really want. If there's going to be lots of HALEU moved, you want to try and simplify transport to make it much easier to reduce cost. And end user. So at the moment, we don't actually have an end user. However, we are engaging with varying clients to try and to make something come to fruition. So next steps, there's like different ancillary equipment, lifting equipment for the package and the different lids, tie-down mechanisms. Basically, when you're moving this thing, make sure it all works as intended. A lot of this work is coming to a close. We're just finalising a few things. Need to do more analysis. As the nature of such short time scales, the design is changing on a weekly basis. So we need to try and keep up to date with that analysis and make sure we are heading in the right direction. Further criticality assessments, that's probably the biggest concern for most. So we are kind of, we can definitely make something work. However, there is not much margin for error. And as mentioned in the previous slide, the Nuclear MRC are manufacturing a model for us. So to conclude, so the design has changed quite a bit over the months we have been developing it, over the 18 or so months. We have come quite a long way. Some of the features we've incorporated have worked very well. I think the main thing as well with HALEU, we are, especially in the UK, we are quite a bit behind like the American markets. We are playing catch up a little bit, but we have got very good engagement points, so we are working with them to try and improve the matter. Thank you for your attention. I'll take one question.
Thank you very much, Adam. I think that was an impressive presentation and very interesting. Is there any question for Adam? Okay, I have a question for you. Maybe I have two questions for you. Let me put my glasses. So I'm not a transport safety specialist, and I think there will be other participants here that aren't either, but we've heard you talk about the, in your design, you look at the impact demonstration, impact tests, shielding, criticality, and the challenges. But I think it would be useful if you could elaborate a little bit more how the development of this transport package aligns with current international regulations and standards for nuclear material transport. And maybe as a follow-up, what would the needs? What would be the needs for new regulations, if any, for HALEU material?
Yeah, they're very good questions and very difficult. Yeah, I'll
come here to have a easy time.
Yeah, so I'll try and answer them as best as I can. So yeah, with the regulations within nuclear transport solutions, we do have a licensing team. So I sit in the design team. So we do have them constantly in touch with the regulators. Looking at regulations, making sure we do comply with them. As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any difficulties with that. I don't think we need to try and get some new regulations in place. We are adhering to SSR 6 as all of our transport packages do. So like I say, I don't think there's too much difficulty there. There's not too much concern. Yeah, I think we are, especially with the varying markets in other countries, we are making real progress to try and make this come to fruition.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we move on to the next speaker. I would like to introduce Mr. Brian Nixon from Nucleo, from United Kingdom, presenting Nucleo's fuel cycle innovations for SMR-led fast reactors, including transport of fresh and spent fuels. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Nixon, Fuel Cycle Director for Nucleo. My presentation, I think, complements our Chief Scientific Officer's presentation from earlier today. So we talked around the LFR, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the fuel and the fuel cycle. So the paper that accompanied this presentation really talks about the innovations that we're making in our small modular lead-cooled fast reactor, Generation 4 reactor, which will be fueled with mixed oxide fuel. And I will talk a little bit about how the technology fits within the existing infrastructure, the existing nuclear ecosystem for the fuel cycle, and how it's complementary and synergistic with that cycle. And I will also touch a little bit about the transport aspects of fuel cycle, which Adam has talked about HALEU, and I'll talk a little bit about MOX transportation. Okay, so Nucleo's vision is to design, manufacture, license and operate fleets of LFR 200 reactors. So that's our fleet design, and we plan to operate those reactors across the UK, France and international markets. And we believe that they will be significant in supporting the energy transition and helping to secure long-term sustainable carbon-free energy. As part of our development roadmap, we will also be designing and operating the LFR 30, which is a 30 megawatt irradiation reactor, and that will help us demonstrate the technology and materials on our way to our fleet design of the LFR 200. We've also got at the Brassimone facility in Italy a non-nuclear demonstrator, which is also part of that roadmap. We're also going to do design, construct, license and operate a MOX fuel manufacturing facility. So this will be built in France, and it will provide the fuel for our reactor fleets wherever they may be deployed. Excuse me. It'll be a modular plant which can be expanded as the fleet grows in order to get the economies of scale. Excuse me. Sorry. Right, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. And the final part of our vision, of course, is to close the fuel cycle. So close to many of our hearts that we can actually take that spent fuel from our LFRs, have that reprocessed, and then have that re-enter the cycle. Ultimately, reducing the volume and the radiotoxicity of what will go to the ultimate repository. And of course, all of this helps with supporting energy independence, sustainability, and increasing the supply of carbon-free energy. Okay, so in terms of what we see are the benefits of closing the fuel cycle. So first of all, we see this as making much better use, more effective use of nuclear material than we do currently in the cycle. So we seek to utilise material that is not currently moving in that cycle. So material that is difficult, various types of plutonium in various forms, depleted uranium or reprocessed uranium. We can use either of those as part of our fuel design. And of course, there's the benefits of you do remove the need for the front end of the cycle by utilising materials that already exist and are already available to operate in our cycle. So the need for mining, conversion, enrichment, we don't need to do that, and we can make use of materials that are already at some stage through that cycle. So we see that our proposal will be significant in helping to, first of all, stabilise plutonium stocks and help Europe develop more by way of energy independence. And then, of course, there's the benefit of making sure that we can reduce the volume and radiotoxicity of material that would go to a geological repository. Okay, so I'm sure you're all familiar with the green part of this diagram. So it shows the fuel cycle that currently exists, and then in orange, this is how we see our contribution using fast reactors to that cycle. So the existing cycle, we extract uranium, we convert, we enrich, we make fuel, and we burn that fuel in a thermal reactor. And then there is, still in France, reprocessing completed, and then that material, the plutonium, can then be used to produce MOX fuel for thermal reactor use. Now, we don't see that there's a competition here, that it's not one or the other, it's both in our view. There are huge synergies between the thermal and the fast neutron spectrum cycles. So we want to take advantage of that. And because of our reactor, we create the need for the fuel, and through our fuel manufacturing facility, we create the wherewithal to make the fuel for the reactor. So we create the demand and the supply, and we can work in harmony with the existing fuel cycle. So, of course, what is crucially important is to develop advanced reprocessing technologies. So it's great to see in France committed to reprocessing till the end of the century, and that we know as part of that there will need to be the development of advanced reprocessing for fast reactor MOX fuel. And then the two cycles can operate together. And with the benefits of the fast neutron spectrum of our reactor, we can truly utilise the material in a better way. So it's not about one or the other, it's both. These things operate in synergy. And I think, to quote a speaker from earlier, integration of existing and new fuel cycles is key for sustainability. And I totally agree with that. I thought that was very well captured. Okay, so in terms of what we're doing, in terms of the composition of our fuel, so mixed oxide fuel, so plutonium and depleted uranium, we can use a variety of depleted uranium sources. So traditional depleted uranium from hex tails, of which there is an abundance around the world from the enrichment activities for thermal reactors. We can also use reprocessed uranium as well. So no need for re-enrichment. We use that material as it is. So again, a great example of not requiring the front end of the cycle. There is already material out there which can be utilised. Plutonium, the plant that we're designing is very flexible and can take a variety of feed materials. So it's got a very broad feed material envelope. So we're able to take material, plutonium, that is not currently able to be used. So whether that's scraps or aged material, our facility will be able to cope with that. And of course, plutonium can be burnt far more effectively in a fast reactor than in a thermal one. So fuel fabrication, we are currently designing a fast reactor MOX plant. That will be initially a 40-ton module design, and then we will be able to add 40-ton modules up to a total of 120 tons. The plant design has recently been through the ASN pre-licensing process in France, which went very smoothly, so much so the end of a process seminar wasn't actually required. So some great work there by the team on the design of the facility. We'll also be highly automated, so making use of new technology, not going too far down, I would say novel technologies, but using what is well known and well proven automation and use of robots in order to remove the operator from the dose and also help with product quality. I'm going to touch on transport now. I thought it's a good segue from Adam's presentation. You know, I think NTS's tagline is, without transport, there is no nuclear industry. So something that I think people do forget or consider at the last minute. For us, transport is crucial. We know that we need to be able to move the fuel for our LFR30 reactor and also for our LFR200. So we've already started the work to look at the options for transportation. Initially for the LFR30, looking at what we can reuse or repurpose in terms of existing packages. Because the lead time, Adam's presentation, the complexity and lead time of developing new packages is significant. So to protect the schedule, what can we use that's already out there for our LFR30 fuel? And then we're exploring what options there are for new packages for the LFR200 fleets. The other aspect for our supply chain is fuel components, of course, because we're talking about reinstating a supply chain that has not been exercised since Super Phoenix. So we've got a challenge in terms of establishing the components required, tubes, plugs, shrouds, end fittings for the MOX fuel that we will seek to make. So we will look to re-establish that as part of our fast reactor program. And then, of course, reprocessing. Ultimately, we need to get access to fast reactor MOX processing. We're not looking to design our own facility, but we're looking to partner, work with the existing ecosystem in order to be part of that, so that we can ultimately close the cycle with our fuel. Okay, so in conclusion, we have a very challenging program. Luciano alluded to it earlier with our timescales. We're looking to have the MOX plant operational in 2031. Same year for our LFR30 demonstrator, and then 2033 for our first LFR200. And we think between our reactors, our MOX plant, we can make a significant contribution to energy security and helping to deliver sustainability and net zero. I think that's it. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Brian, for this very interesting presentation. Is there any question? Yes, from the back, please.
Thank you for this very informative presentation. Nikoleta Morelova from Slovak Nuclear Regulatory Authority. I have a question. Could you please say something about the assembly, like the geometry that you're planning, and if you have encountered any issues regarding the assembly itself, the design, or could you comment something on this, please?
The design is not revolutionary. It is based upon Super Phoenix fuel design. The LFR200 design is around just over 6 meters long. It's a hexagonal array, stainless steel componentry. The plutonium content will be up to 35% typically. So yes, it's a proven design. We have work to do around material testing for both the reactor and for the fuel assembly itself, but not revolutionary.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. We're having a great session, and now it's a pleasure to introduce Héctor Lestani from the Comisión Nacional de Energía Atómica from Bariloche, Argentina, and he's going to talk about the current 25 fuel cycle optimization and ATF evaluation. Héctor.
Thank you, Anna. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have some energy for the last presenter. For me, it's a big honor to be here and to give you a short presentation. This presentation, as you can expect, it's not about short-term industrial applications, but it's about what I consider a promising technical study and results for mid-term application. I will talk about, if I can look at the presentation. Okay, thank you. I will talk about ATF neutronic evaluation in the current 25 fuel cycle. This presentation has the following content. First of all, I will tell you what the motivation for all these calculations, analysis, and even this presentation is. Then I will tell you what is the neutronic optimization scheme that I have proposed and I have used, and I will show you. Then I will show you some optimization results, and finally, some conclusions. You can see it's not a very long presentation. We are here because SMRs come to solve big nuclear problems. SMRs have smaller capital investment, shorter construction time, modularity, and we are looking for standardization. Most SMR designs that we have seen here and we read every day have internalized the lessons learned from decades of experience. Also, most SMRs include passive safety features to improve reliability. However, there is still some room for improvement in accidental conditions, and we know this from the experience of our industry. So, this is why we decided to evaluate the use of ATF. What is ATF? ATF stands for, initially, it was accident-tolerant fuels, but it seems that we don't like the word accident, so now we call them advanced technology fuels. And these fuels, whose materials replace the conventional materials for the cladding and for the fuel pellets, have a safer behavior during accidental conditions. So we said, okay, so let's evaluate the neutronic feasibility of avoiding zirconium in the nuclear fuel of our reactor design. Amongst the different ATFs that we could try, we have focused on avoiding zirconium because of its problematic behavior when in the accidental conditions. There are other types of ATF that could be evaluated. We focused on avoiding zirconium. Ficral was chosen due to many promising results that you can find in the literature during accidental and severe accident conditions. But when it's perhaps obvious for us, when we replace zirconium, we are increasing the neutronic absorptions in the fuel. So there is a cost for replacing zirconium. So this work focuses on the neutronic implicances of increasing the cladding absorptions. How can we compensate for that absorptions increase? Let's talk about that. An enrichment increase results obvious and necessary. But how much do we have to increase the enrichment? When we introduce an ATF fuel, do we increase the enrichment as to compensate for the higher absorptions, or do we use another criteria? How is enrichment affected by design and operational parameters? And how are safety requirements complied with while optimizing enrichment? All these aspects we are trying to answer in this presentation that I'm giving to you. So I will show you what's the neutronic optimization scheme that we have used. This shows the calculation scheme. We make a parametric variation of enrichment and burnable poisons in the fuel. With that combination of enrichment and burnable absorbers, we make a cell calculation and a core calculation. So we simulate the neutronics coupled with thermal hydraulics of our core design. If you make a variation of the enrichment, at the end of the cycle, you obtain different reactivities at the beginning, at the end of the cycle. That is because you are putting more fissile material. To compensate for that, we have this red line iteration that implies that if you have less reactivity than what you wanted, you decrease the cycle length and vice versa. As a result, you obtain, as a function of enrichment, a cycle that is longer as you increase the enrichment. And as a direct consequence of that, when you increase the enrichment, you obtain higher extraction burnup. This might seem obvious for any neutronic person here, but we have to say this. So far, so good, and this is what we wanted. We want to increase the enrichment and have a higher extraction burnup from the fuel because that is the energy we obtain. So we are happy with this. However, when you go to look for the shutdown margins, what you find is that if you have a criterion, you see that if you only rise the enrichment, that criterion is not met anymore. The shutdown margins are not met. We could easily say, okay, we can put more control rods, and we can easily calculate that. And all the shutdown margins are okay, but this is something we can calculate and was something we can easily say, but something not so easy to implement in a real reactor. You have layout problem, physical and space limitations. So we decided to not use this solution and go for another approach, a little bit more complicated, but I consider more elegant. What we see here is the reactivity evolution of the reactor during the cycle length. What happens if in that